All right. So the next thing I want to demo, let me just refresh this here, is something that Terry had asked me to look into. We have, we're trying to stay on top of bots and bots submitting surveys, especially for projects that are handing out gift cards. And there's the Ned CAPTCHA and reCAPTCHA, Google CAPTCHA. There's a few different things that we can use, but some of the bots are still getting through. And so we wanted to try to give people some more tools to kind of guard themselves against these bot submissions. So what Terry had asked me to do was look into trying to find a way to get the user or the participant's IP address. So, because if somebody's at a bot farm and they're running script that's just churning out these survey submissions, their IP address should be the same. And you would at least be able to go through your data, and if the IP address is popping up multiple times, you could at least flag it to be like, maybe these are not legit. So with this project, let me just show you the survey. So if we open up this survey here, I just have first name, last name, and IP address. And if we just autofill this, I don't know why the IP address is blank, but let's leave that. Because it should autofill. Let me disconnect my VPN. We'll go back to that. It should autofill. Let me go back to my designer here. Oh, I think it's because I changed. Yeah, that's why. It's because I changed the code. Let me see. It never fails. Anytime I do a demo, it works fine like the morning of, and then as soon as I go to demo, something's changed. um, but we do have records in there, so you can show you that it was working.
While you're checking it, let me just make a couple quick comments
Sure.
about that. So REDCap by default doesn't grab IP addresses. And the reason that is if you have an anonymous survey and you've got IRB approval for an anonymous survey and you start collecting IP addresses, then it's no longer actually anonymous. So that could be an issue. So beware or be careful or understand what you're doing when you collect an IP address. I really wanted this tool, but the primary place that you would use it are those projects that are collecting participant information, because let's just keep using that example. And see, it's working. I'll get it back to you in a second, Manny.
Mhm.
If you're going to send out a gift card because you're registering or want to be part of a project, then that's where we start running into problems and getting hit with bots and all these. Now you're going to have to try and figure out who's really eligible for this card and who's not, and it is a nightmare. But you're already collecting participant information. This is a tool to help us figure out the submissions from a single IP address that we don't have easily. This is a quick tool that we can use in conjunction with the investigator or coordinator to see if there's these multiple hits from a single IP address. Now, this is not fail-safe. I would use this if I had a gift card type project, I would use this in conjunction with something like reCAPTCHA or something where you're using multiple levels of sort of authentication or trying to keep bots out. But we've had those situations where even though we run reCAPTCHA or whatever, we get hit with spam or phishing or whatever, and we get multiples. So if you're using a VPN, it won't tell you what the true IP address is. So, I mean, that's an issue too, but it's just one more tool we're trying to put in your toolbox to help if you have the kind of survey that's in a project that people are spamming you or botting you. So anyway, that's why I'm so pleased to see this. I just don't want you to get yourself in a situation where you're using it in a project that's supposed to be anonymous. I don't think that's something that anybody's going to really like. Okay, so anyway, go ahead, Manny. You got this working now.
Yeah, just because I disabled it and didn't set the form here.
Yeah, we'll just cut that out of the video.
Well, because usually what happens is I'll do it and then I disable things so that way I can show you as I'm building it, and then sometimes I forget that I disabled it. But anyway, if we go to the survey and open it, it automatically populates with my IP address. And this field could be hidden. I don't know why this keeps giving me scissors. It should give me the time to submit. So let's see what value it gave me.
There's isn't it an external module or whatever that, or a setting on the project you can add to automatically create fake data for testing?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
This should have
on.
been a read-only field. So it shouldn't have given it a value, but I think I didn't have read-only on here. It saved it as the value I wanted anyway, but it just was weird that it was popping up with scissors. So if we do go back to the form or the survey and just click autofill, I guess it's going to give me paper again anyway, but it's going to save it with a value. But this is another thing I'm going to talk about here shortly. So you could have the IP address as a hidden field so that whoever's filling out the survey has no idea that that value is getting done. And the way I'm grabbing the IP address is with this function here. And what it's doing is it's going to this website called api.ipify. And it's giving me, it's basically using their functionality. And it's grabbing, I'm giving it in the form of JSON. So if I copy the whole link, you'll see here that it's going to give it to me in an IP this is like a field value format or a key value pair. And I'm referring to it by IP here. So it's just giving me, using JSON, it's grabbing that value. And all I'm saying is if this IP address field, this input field is blank, or the value is blank, then I want you to give me the value. This prevents it from being overwritten, because like if I fill this out and then Terry opened up the survey, or somebody, whoever's running the project, opens up the survey, it would automatically fill in with their IP address. Now, if they didn't save anything, it'd be no problem, but every time you opened it, it would fire. So this prevents that, because it's saying it's only going to fill in that value if it's empty. And the way I got this is similar to the way I do all my projects. Is anytime I create a project, if I go to this, I'll highlight the field and go to the inspect tab, and it's this input field down here, and you can see that the field is is called IP address, and then REDCap gives it the IP address dash TR, and then I'm just grabbing the input from that. So that's what my JavaScript is grabbing, is the input field that has a class of IP address, IP underscore address. So once again, this code will be made available for everybody. I'll put it on our website so you can download. And then you would just go into if you're not familiar with the external module, you would just go down to, you would enable it. So if it's not enabled, you would enable it here, and you would type JavaScript injector or JavaScript, and it'll fill in. And then once it's enabled, you go to configure, click enabled, and you would just paste the code here. And then this one, you would want to make sure that you don't really need it on data entry pages. You would want it on your surveys, and then you would inject it on the specific instrument that you want it to pop up on. You don't want it to be on all pages. I mean, you could have it on all pages. You're not going to have a field that says IP address, but when you're injecting JavaScript, it's better to kind of clamp down on where it's actually having an effect. So it's good to have it only on the data entry pages or the surveys where you're expecting it to do its job. Because if you have it on something else, it could cause problems somehow. So you just would save that and enable it that way. Now, the other thing that the other tool that I think would help is having a field that tracks the number of seconds or minutes. I mean, if you have a really long form or short form, it just depends. But tracking the amount of time it takes, the duration it takes to complete the survey. Because if you're getting hit by somebody who's like, if you have 100 questions to ask on a survey and somebody's completing it in like 30 seconds, obviously they've probably got a script that's running through and banging out like autofilling and all that stuff. So you would be able to see if they've ran through that really quickly. And the way to do that is there's a smart variable called survey duration. And then this is the survey. This is this was the survey, but I think it's changed now because I called it something else. It used to be called IP check, but now it's let me see. So let's go to so we have here, so this is a survey duration instrument. And then what you do is you just put in the survey name, and you would put in the value that you want here. And this might be hard to see. So if you want minutes, it's a lowercase m, hours, seconds, it's lowercase s, hours is lowercase h, months, days, years, that kind of thing. So I don't think you would ever have anything that would last that long, but if you wanted seconds, you would just do lowercase s. So I have here, this used to be called IP check. So now it's called tracking. So that's the instrument here, and you can see it. I got it from up here. So if we save that, and the nice thing is that you could use the data quality rules. So I had already entered some records in here before and wanted that to populate. And so it was nice to see that anything that didn't have the value before would get the value. So REDCap is tracking that data somewhere, even if it's not live, it's holding that value. So you can see here that for 9, 10, and 11, this should be 7 seconds, 13 seconds, 8 seconds, but they're blank. So if I just fix them. And now if you go to, you could create a report. So I have this report that's just called suspicious survey submissions. I probably should have named it something else with all those S's. But you can see here that now there are records that have anything that's below 30 seconds. So I created a report that's just filtering the completion time and saying, give me anything that's below 30 seconds. So this would be something that you would set, maybe have some people in your lab or part of your project, run through the survey, and you can get a baseline of like, okay, well, if I really hammer it, I can get it done in, a minute and a half. But if I take my time, and then you could give yourself a little bit of a window. Like if anything's under a minute and a half, like I was really cooking when I went through this survey, and I'm a pro. I know what the questions are, and you could get down a time where that this is kind of reasonable. And then you'd be able to view it and see what the completion times are, anything that's under that. This would also be a good way for you to see your data. So you would be able to immediately pick out if there's any values that are duplicated. I was trying to find a way to do a count. So if it goes through the IP address and it counts any duplicates, I'm still working on that. There are some functions that we might be able to use with like the dashboards and some of the aggregate like chart stuff. I'm still working on that, but this would be something that you'd be able to use and just keep an eye on. You'd be able to track IP address, and you'd be able to track completion time. You might want to also put something in there that tracks, if you're tracking for collecting first name, last name for people or email addresses, you might be able to run a report that looks for duplicate names. I would do a field that concatenates first and last name. So that way you're looking at just one value. Instead of first name and last name, you're just looking at name. And then you could see anybody that has a duplicate name, first name and last name, or like a duplicate email address. So just little things that you can do to kind of arm yourself a little better against bots and people just spamming surveys. So any little bit helps. Does anybody have any questions about that?